This next presenter is Wyatt, and if you recognize the last name Wyatt, Chris Wyatt, helps us out quite a bit, and apparently helping Chinnquapins is a family affair. So Chris is going to talk to us a little bit. He is a employee of the Arkansas Game and Fish. He has been all over the United States. He's worked in the deep south in Florida. He's worked in Georgia. And he has come to realize there's a lot of neat stuff that can be done. And now he's benefiting Arkansas. Currently, he is the Assistant Regional Supervisor for the North Central Arkansas section. I think it's Region 7, is that correct? And so what that means is he has bureaucracy in addition to making sure that there's good habitat going on the ground here in Arkansas. So with that, he has a BS in Fisheries and Wildlife Science. Since his graduation, he has served in a number of positions, and he's currently certified as a wildlife biologist and president-elect of the Arkansas chapter of the Wildlife Society. So please, let's welcome him to the stage with a good round of applause.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Don't ever like being the first person to talk after lunch because everybody's got a full belly and thinking about finding a shade tree outside and getting a little nap. But anyway, happy to be here to talk about Ozark Chinnquapins today. I appreciate the Steve Chinquapin Foundation inviting me back to talk. It's been a couple of years, so happy to give a little presentation on Arkansas Game and Fish's stance on the Ozark Chinnquapin. Like AJ said, my name is Wyatt, and I work for the Arkansas Game and Fish. And I'm just going to make a real brief statement. A lot of people ask, well, why does Game and Fish, care about Ozark Chinnquapins? Why am I down here talking as a wildlife biologist? And it goes back to a lot of what the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's mission is, and it's really to conserve and enhance Arkansas's fish and wildlife species and their habitat. We firmly believe that the Ozark Chinnquapin historically played a very large role in many wildlife species habitat, and we would really like to see the Ozark Chinnquapin come back to its former glory, especially in this native range in Arkansas, to help all of these different species of wildlife. And I got a little bit of a slide towards the end that kind of talks about one of our plans, Arkansas Wildlife Action Plan, that incorporates some of those restoration of certain species, and certainly includes the Ozark Chinnquapin. So, going to go over a few things on here. I'm pretty informal. I like pictures, and I like moving around and talking. So if I get too theatrical or y'all can't understand my twang, just holler and tell me to repeat something. Okay, my first little talk I want to give, a little slideshow, is about an Ozark Chinnquapin restoration plot. I think Steve, I heard him talk about the different types of plots that we have. We did this one, I believe, in 2021, because I know a lot of these photos we was all wearing COVID masks out in the field outside, so we all remember those times. So a lot of these photos, you'll see that was our original planning. The Bell Slough is a pretty cool area. It's located in central Arkansas in Faulkner County, for anyone that's ever been in that part of the world, not very far at all off Interstate 40. It's about a 2,000-acre WMA. It's really cool because it's the convergence of the Ozark, Ouachita, River Valley, and the Delta ecoregions. So it right there falls right between all the joining of 4 different ecoregions in the state. So real diversity of habitat. You can stand and look at moist soil unit with thousands of waterfowl flying around. You can turn around and look and see mountain bird soil, east-west running ridges with 200-year-old 14-inch diameter post oaks right behind you. So very unique location, certainly within the historical range of the Ozark Chinnquapin tree. We had not found any on these ridges, but looking at the soil type and talking with members of the Chinnquapin Foundation back in 2020, we decided it was a pretty good site to try planting, and that's exactly what we did. And I'm going to go through a few pictures and just talk about that, and then I have a more recent planting that we just did this year, another one of our Arkansas WMAs that I'm going to mention too. So. Did I go the wrong way? Oh, I didn't. Didn't push the button hard enough. So anyway, right here is Bell Slough WMA. Y'all see right over here, 2,000 acres. We also have Camp Robinson Special Use Area, Stone Prairie WMA, and Camp Robinson Military Base. I think I heard Terrence mention in his presentation about the continuation of, continuous habitat, and that's why this WMA is really important, because it's in a highly urbanized area, one of the faster growing counties in the state of Arkansas, and it's a part of over 20,000 acres of continuous habitat management that we do for a lot of different wildlife species, and it's a really important travel corridor because of that convergence within those ecoregions in the state of Arkansas. So it was a very ideal candidate to restore some Ozark Chinnquapins, and I can push this button hard enough. So we planted this strategically along the Kenny Vernon Nature Trail Kenny Burton was a former supervisor of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission Regional in a similar position to mine, and he passed away and was really passionate about this trail, and they named that trail in his memory. And it's a really cool nature trail to see that river valley ecosystem, like I mentioned, has really high use. We don't have a good trail counter, but I have no doubt there's 5,000 to 10,000 folks a year hiking this trail, because you can never go out there hot, cold, or in between and not see tons of people on this trail. So the Chinquapin planting is, for anyone that wants to look, you park over here and you hike up, and it's going to be right up here in this switchback in this little bend, and I'll show y'all why in just a minute. So you can see the topo line here. It's right on a little slope. This was the original planting that we did. You can see the dates of the original planting was April 15th of 2021, and we come back and planted a few extra trees. I believe they had a small handful of seed left, and it was kind of late in the year, and we decided to throw a few extra in the ground there on May 28th. And I'll tell y'all why that's kind of tough when you plant them that late. Them nuts have been sitting in that peat moss for that long. They're a little bit long in the root. See here. So a little bit of the site description: Arkansas River Valley, Ozark, Washita, dry mesic oak forest, poor soils. The reason we really like the Chinquapins from a wildlife perspective is because they thrive in areas with very other trees that produce nowhere near the quality of hard mass that Ozark Chinquapin can. They thrive in those poor soil conditions. So in areas where, especially in the absence of fire, a lot of our hickory nuts and things like that have taken over, and they are not nearly as highly productive to other wildlife species as those are Chinquapin. We see those dominate. So we've done a lot of injection and timber sales and removal of some of these other tree species and replacing them with what we know historically would have been there prior to humans excluding fire for a good while out of these areas. So that was kind of the site. It's actually just above this on more of a slope, but you can see really closed canopy forest. Y'all see how much shades on the forest floor. As a wildlife guy, if I'm going around looking for a spot to find a big buck deer or go find me a gobbler to hunt, other than him strutting that stuff, that's not what I'm looking at to make long-term turkey and deer habitat, okay? That right there is what we kind of call wildlife desert, okay? All of the groceries are above what most animals can reach, which is that 6 to 8 foot range. Only a few birds and things like that are flying up and eating stuff in the trees. Most of the groceries are on the ground for wildlife. If they can't reach it, if you can't reach up and touch it, they can't get to it either. So we want to do everything we can to bring those groceries from being up top, way up high in our tree, and get that stuff down to ground level to where wildlife can actually benefit from it. So we've been doing a lot of this around the state of Arkansas, especially in the Ozarks. It's called the WSI, Wildlife Stand Improvement, and our foresters write a prescription. We decide what trees historically were there based on soil types, and we decide the fire return interval based on historic fire scarring, and then we get rid of the trees that are there because of humans, and we put it back the way that we think it was around European settlement. Okay, that's about as far back as we're really good on some of our data. We have some stuff that goes a little before that, but we want to get it back to pre-European settlement conditions, and that's what we're working on. So the next thing we did is we got rid of a whole bunch of trees. So y'all can see that's the tree density we're looking at. That site had been injected. Those trees just hadn't died for the injection of small dose chemical we used. This site we didn't use chemical because of the Ozark Chinquapin plant. We just went in and cut the trees down and we excluded some chemical use in here. So see the slope, good slope, well-drained soils. Again, mountain birds, sandy, loamy soils, you know, well-drained. There's us doing our original planting, and so ironically, I told this to somebody earlier, whenever Sean Smith and my dad came to help us plant, and we had a lot higher survival, or when the Master Naturals did it, we had a lot higher survival. When we did it on this last one, for some reason, we aren't quite as good as they are, but we're still trying. Keep pushing my button. There's a little bit more pictures of planting. There's some of our stuff, and I know y'all are going to see more of this, but there's a couple folks that are real important. There's Pat and Fred. They were really critical. They were really passionate about this project. Foothills Master Naturalist chapter members, and they were very passionate at the beginning of this project. They really helped us a ton, and want to give a lot of credit to them for all their work on this project. Alright, I'm about done. Showed enough photos of planting. But this right here is one thing I was going to show you all. So see how long this root is? This is from our May planting. And I'm sure there's some slides, or Steve and them can talk to you about it. But if you get your Ozark Chinquapins in the mail from being a foundation member, and you decide, well, I ain't got time to plant them, you let it drag on until about May or June, and then little taproots start getting that long, they become really difficult to plant. So the earlier you can get them in, as soon as they start germinating, the better success. Because if you're a little bit of a butterfingers like me and not real delicate, that's why I'm not a surgeon. Putting those things in the ground in that hole in that sand is really easy to break that. Once you break it, you might as well just put another one in the ground, because you you lost your chance on that one. So that's one advice I'd give to anybody deciding to do one of these. There's one of our whole plantings, and again, just more of the same. I know there's going to be more talks about planting trees. I'm not going to get into that too much. But again, volunteers. These people weren't getting paid. They were out there giving their time through their organization, the Master Naturalist, the Foothills chapter there, and just really, really appreciate them being involved in this whole ordeal. I don't think we would have any trees alive out there right now if it wasn't for them. I'll just be honest with you. And I'll show y'all some pictures of these from this year. Watering. This is a hiking trail. It's about a mile one way in, I believe, and about a mile back out. Most of the time they hiked in and they watered them trees twice a week, every week. So again, a lot of dedication from volunteers, doing a lot of work. They were still out there watering and taking care of the trees, everyone having a good time. I told y'all we wore masks during the time because of COVID at the time. Here's just a highlight of what we had. So we planted about 40 trees in that planting. We had about 26 that germinated. So a little over half. Had really good growth rate. You know, we had an average height of 20 inches our first year with some that came out of the top of the 4-foot tubes. We had some 52-inch trees. We was proud of that. And then the second year, we had a few more kicked out. Drought will get them even with watering. And then our highest one after second year, we had almost an 8-foot tree, you know, on the second year. So really good growth rates. Again, this is from 2021. So I'm going to show you all some pictures now of some 3- and 4-year-old trees that are from that plot. Little babies. I remember Pat, she just talked to them like they were children every time she went to look down the tube. She just, oh, you itty bitty baby, all that stuff. So they're cool little trees when they come out. There's some first year growth. You can see coming out of the top of our 4-foot grow tubes. I have to ask Steve, he would know what 89XX means, but I'd be a firm believer in that being a good gene of tree because they grew extremely well on this side, and they're our largest trees that we got out there are still 89XX, wherever that come from. Proprietary secrets, only Steve Bose knows the answer to that. That's our planting site. Y'all can see how open, how much sunlight we did, how much clearing we did around all the trees. That was our water tank. We were using a lot rainfall water and filling that up with a pumper and watering them. Pat and Fred did a lot of rock painting for our tree identification route on our nature trail, and they added a really cool rock to add to the Chinquapin plot there. So they added our identification rocks. We now have Ozark Chinquapins back where we didn't have them before. That was a second year tree, getting in close to that 8-foot range. I took some pictures of. Let me see here. And if I get behind on time, Steve, I like to talk, so you just holler and tell me to shut it down. But we also went ahead and had some interpretive panels made around our trail. Again, this is a 5,000 to 10,000 person hike a year trail. People were asking what the space tubes were for on our trail. Lots of people calling asking what they were for. So we went and had a plaque made and sent it over to the Chinquapin Foundation. Let them look it over and put a link to the website and about the membership and about the mission of the Chinquapin Foundation and Game and Fish involvement. Added that to this right here trail so everyone can learn a little bit while they walk by it. Alright, let's see. Right there is a tree from this year. So that was that same tree that I showed you that was 90 inches on the second year. That right there is the 4th year of that tree right there. So it made burrs last year, but they didn't have any nuts in them. So actually the first of the 4th year, they made burrs, and then this year will be the 5th year. So they had some burrs, the drought looked like it kind of kicked them off. So I don't think we made it viable this year, but are hoping in our 5th and 6th year plot, so we actually get some nuts off of it. But they did make some burrs on their 4th year. Right there's another really nice healthy tree coming out of this planting. You can see that the vegetation is coming in just like we would like. That is deer and turkey and small game heaven in there. All that vegetation on the ground, everything's coming off from the tree. See how much browse and food and covers on the ground level. And then we got the Ozark Chinquapins up above them, so they're not being shaded out, and they're going to come up in the sunlight above all that weedy vegetation, and they're going to produce us some wonderful wildlife food. I just put this picture in here because I sent it to my dad, asking what to do, and we're taking the tubes off of these is our advice. Once they get to where they're forking, they're branching like that, we went ahead and pulling our tubes off. So anyway, I think it's pretty impressive, you know, as a wildlife biologist, and I've been a private lands biologist, multiple things where I drove all over the state looking at people's land and talking to them. And one of the reoccurring things that I hear that people love sawtooth oaks, and I'm not up here to bash sawtooth oaks, so that's not what I'm here for, but you know, sawtooth oak is not native to Arkansas, it's not native to the United States. And we have native trees that can do the exact same thing. You know, we have great Ozark Chinquapin stock through the Chinquapin Foundation. You can plant native trees. You can still make an acorn crop, a hard mass crop in less than 5 years. you know, we still have the exact same substitute, but we can go native. So if there's a better option for a native tree, I definitely am a proponent of planting native things, and that's why I really enjoyed all of my work with the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation. Keys to success. I will put this in bold letters and I will never take it off, because if I ever talk about this plant and I don't mention the Foothills chapter of the Arkansas Master Naturals, I didn't do service how much work they really did. I have no doubt if the game and fish is the only folks involved, there would be none of them trees to take pictures of right now. So I just want to give them a plug, because I really appreciate it, especially Pat and Fred. They gave all the TLC, you could give anything, took great care of them, and babied those things for the first 2.5, 3 years. And once we got to that point, we kind of decided, let's just see how they do on their own, see how drought tolerant they're going to be. And we've lost a few more, but they're still over 25% of our original planting, living and thriving, and hope to get some crop and cross-pollination out of that. So do your site prep, make sure you got good bare ground, everything looks great for sunlight, trees love sunlight, and don't wait too long to plant them. That would be my key to success for that particular planting. So let's see here. That's the Bell Slough WMA, all right, in conclusion. So I got one more. And it's shorter, but because it just happened. But we also did a planting this year. I think we did 4 WMAs actually. I think Madison County did a planting, more of a just general seeding rather than a restoration plot. Gene Rush WMA did a planting up in the Ozarks. Bell Slough has a restoration plot. And then now we've added one to Scott Henderson Gulf Mountain WMA in Van Buren County, which if anyone's familiar with Highway 65, north to south kind of corridor going up into Missouri. You probably drove through Clinton, whether you realize it or not. It's a small town right there at the foot of the Ozarks. You kick out on 95, you'll come to the little town of Scotland, and that'll bring you to Scott Henderson Gulf Mountain WMA. Beautiful WMA, have had lots of habitat restoration work like we talked about, lots of prescribed fire, tons of restored savanna woodlands in that area. We have a really great auto tour up there, hiking trail, all the things you can go do. And now we've added an Ozark Chinquapin restoration plot on that area. We had an old housing residence next to our new office, and we had an old office building, and we finally got that demoed, and we had this large, probably about 2-acre opening, and we didn't really know exactly what to do with it. We were going to restore some kind of native habitat. It had been largely Bermuda grass yard at the time. It was right at the top of one of these pretty sandy ridges. We didn't find any clay when we drove our rebar down, so we decided that'd be a pretty good site to plant some Ozark Chinquapin trees. So reached out to the foundation, and they were gracious enough to give us about enough to plant 1 acre. So we did a 1-acre plot, and next to it we did a pollinator planting. That's still in the works, but basically the 2 acres turned into 1 acre Ozark Chinquapins and 1 acre of native flowers is what we got up there now. So just show you all a little bit of that. So right here is where the Chinquapin planting is. If you come on up from Scotland, you come to our office right here. And right there where that old house used to be, the old ranger station doesn't exist anymore. I should change that to a picture of an Ozark Chinquapin tree where that ranger emblem is, because that's all that's there now. There's no building. So we planted 68 trees in roughly a 25 to 25 spacing up there on April 8th of this year. We had about a 90% germination rate, which I was very, very proud of to have that many of them come up, especially considering that we didn't have the help of the experts this round. We tried it on our own with 4 game and fish staff, and did really good. And we were real proud. I was bragging to my dad and everybody else about how good we'd done. And then the rain set in, and then right behind the rain came the hard, dry weather in August, and we've had a lot more die-offs since then. But we're still setting it up right at half. I think when I counted the day, last day of the week, Thursday, I was up there last week, and there was 34 looking good of the 68. There's a few that I think might come out of it. I asked Steve and my dad about them, but they're looking a little wilty. So I'll show you all. That was our planting. This was a whole office site prior to this planting. Again, we cleared, sprayed all the Bermuda grass out, got rid of all of that, let it set for a year, and then we disturbed the soil there and then planted us a whole field full of Ozark Chinquapins right there in place. So, wow. Full acre there, right off the main road, right at the start of our auto tour where the public can get out. Again, we're adding one of them informational kiosk signs. And yeah, y'all just holler at me on time. I'm on 21 minutes deep. We had been going to have one of the informational panels where the public's highly involved. They drive right by when they come into the entrance of the WMA, and they can stop and learn about Ozark Chinquapins and Ozark Chinquapin Foundation's mission, along with its historical significance to the Ozark Mountains up there. So, let's see if I can get a picture here. That's been really critical for us. Is this right here? We have a little 5 minutes. Okay, I can flip through it. I think I got 2 more slides after this. So watering, we got a poly Q-tac tank with a little pumper motor that we use for prescribed burning. Wrote, do not ever put herbicide in that tank, so no one ever puts herbicide in it. We like to spray herbicide for invasive species, but we do not get it anywhere around our Ozark Chinquapin plantings. So water them a lot. We've been trying to do at least a half to 1 gallon twice a week here in the hot times. But we still have some trees died. I don't know. Again, I got some hypothesis about why they died, but they were water heavy. But anyway, I asked Steve and my dad, some other folks that are expert Chinquapins. So they started looking like this. You know, good, healthy trees, getting lots of water, lots of rain. And I suspect possibly the tubes. They were getting really hot, even with ventilated tubes. I don't know, the temperature seemed insane inside those tubes. So we opted to pull them off until the leaves come off here at the end, in the hope that the deer browse don't get too bad. So we pulled all of our tubes off of our trees for the moment. Do not do that, that's experiment. So that's what we've done in the meantime to see if it helps them from kicking out during these few hot days until we get to this fall, and then we'll stick the tubes back on going into winter. But anyway, still got 34 trees, look really good. It ain't all doom and gloom. We still got some beautiful, 40-inch trees, and we planted those as nuts on April 8th. Right? So they're right at the top of our rebars, our 48-inch rebars. So just really, really good success, I think, on that growth first year. Hoping to get another really good plot, so hopefully long-term put some blight-resistant Ozark Chinquapins back in with our Chinquapins that exist on this WMA. Some of them are not real tall, but super healthy. Really, really good-looking trees. Those are a little under 2 foot. We have a lot of ours look just like that. So I think we've done pretty good on our success rate so far this year. So that's the second plant I want to talk about. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I think I mentioned at the start of the presentation, why do we care as a wildlife biologist, as an agency whose mission is to conserve and enhance Arkansas's wildlife species and the fish species? Why are we worried about an Ozark Chinquapin tree? Okay, Ozark Chinquapins are native to Arkansas. Human intervention and the introduction of European chestnut blight is the reason they're not as prevalent on the landscape today as they were 70 years ago. So that lines up very well with that mission statement, correct? To find a species that we know played a critical role in wildlife populations. We know very well as a scientist the decline of many different wildlife species, especially our non-game species. Bats, birds, pollinators, butterflies, native bees. Those species are declining rapidly, more so than we ever know in the history of time. So understanding why and putting things back into place that were there before humans got involved is what our mission is. So part of that definitely fits the bill for an Ozark Chinquapin, correct? So we're working with the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation to plant these trees and restore these blight-resistant strains to our landscapes where we know they historically existed for that reason. Because we know that they have consistent hard mass. Ozark Chinquapins are late bloomers. They bloom well into the spring. So a lot of times the frost that gets our white oak acorns doesn't get the Ozark Chinquapins. They're a high volume mass producer. They produce a lot of nuts when you got a good healthy tree. You can hear the old articles about people shovel them into the wagons, right? So that volume of hard mass is a superfood. Even if it ain't for a real long period, it's a superfood for wildlife when they hit the ground. We know the protein content is almost 4 times that of a white oak acorn. So not only is there a lot of them, are they consistent, they're very, very nutritious. Really high carbohydrate content, almost 60% carbohydrates in one nut. And very good fat content, so we know they're a superfood for wildlife. Another critical thing, I hear a lot of people, again, I'm not up here to bash sawtooth oaks, don't take this the wrong way if you got a bunch of them planted, but if you've ever looked at a sawtooth oak acorn, how big are they? Unless you buy certain varieties, most of them I see have a nut about this big, right? If you're a northern Bob White, little quail up there in the Ozark Mountains, you're going to have a very hard time swallowing a sawtooth oak acorn that's this big around, right? If you're a gobbler, which is my favorite animal to go chase around, you're going to have a hard time swallowing that sawtooth oak if it's a regular variety. They do have some other varieties, but same with deer, very high tannin content in sawtooth oak acorn. I'm not going to pick those up and eat them. If I find a big handful of Ozark Chinquapins, guess what? I'm going to throw them out and eat them because they're delicious. Animals have the same sense of taste buds. They know that tannin content is higher in those species. They're going to select for the higher protein, the better carbohydrate, better starchy foods like an Ozark Chinquapin nut. Okay? High value food source. This is really important, right? They build a niche that's disappearing. They're adapted to poor soils. They do well growing in really well-drained soils that drought would kill most other things. So really deep taproot, they go down fast, they do well in dry soils. So we like that, and we're all about ecosystem diversity in the wildlife business, okay? We want everything to have its own little niche throughout the year, and Ozark Chinquapins can fit that bill for a lot of wildlife species. picture of dead turkeys in my presentation too. I like killing turkeys. I like hunting. Arkansas Game and Fish is very much founded on hook and bullet philosophy. That hunting and fishing is part of our conservation. It is not the only thing we care about, and that is not the only reason we're involved in Ozark Chinquapin Foundation. Painted bunnies are a pretty awesome bird as well, okay? Not quite as cool as Kill a Big Gobbler, but they're right there behind me, okay? So, painted buttons are important, butterflies are important. This is actually taken, if you can almost see a Chinquapin too, that's from our Chinquapin plot at Bell Slough. So, we like the pollinator use. There's a lot of research. I think someone else has given a presentation on different birds maybe and stuff up here. So, whoever's giving that presentation, I seen on the agenda, I really appreciate that work because we do a lot of bird research as well and non-game species, and we see a high use of these pollinators and these avian species inside around these Ozark Chinquapins. So they're critical for things besides just our hook and bullet species, our deer, turkey, quail, bear species, okay? They fit to the bill of the Arkansas Wildlife Action Plan. Congress mandated, if you read this whole plan, you go to our Facebook page, www.agfc.com, and just search for AWAP. And you can read up. We actually have a current draft out right now explaining all these species of greatest conservation need that exist in the state of Arkansas and how we're working to restore those habitats. And Ozark Chinquapins fall in a large chunk of those habitat types we're working to restore. So again, we're not just worried about the hook and bullet species, we're worried about ecosystem and habitat restoration, and that's why we're involved in the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation. Appreciate y'all's time, and if anyone has any questions, I got some business cards I'll be happy to leave on the table. Reach out to me. We have to talk to anyone, especially if it's about a critter of any kind. So, thank y'all. That's all I got.